Yes, hello tradies. Welcome again to season 2025. We are yet to officially begin games, but tradies well and truly underway. As I welcome my co-host who's got one of those smiles on his face that usually delineates that he's got something to say.
I haven't got any work done this last week. All I've been doing is just scrolling Instagram and TikTok and watching the Tradies podcast reaction. It's been picked up by a few other outlets, mind you. The reaction to Sam's A-graders, the 31 players. I know you're not on social, and I've been screenshotting a few little clips and messages to you, but I've quite enjoyed the week. It's been nice to sit back and watch it unfold from afar.
I'm trying to remember the last time I had as big a reaction for something I said, and I can't remember one. Can you?
Crows camp?
Or maybe. Yeah, that was different.
This
was fun, though.
Yeah.
I was at Hawks training last Wednesday. Took my notepad and pen and some binoculars.
Good to see you back out on the...
That's right.
On the beat.
On the beat. And training had finished, but I was still sort of like watching things going on, at the other end of the ground through the lenses. And tap on the shoulder, turn around.
Dylan Moore?
Jack Ginnivan. Where was I? You're kidding. Give it some time. He's about one of 5 players that individually wanted to have something to say.
That's amazing.
Luke Bruce, not happy?
You did your best to get him in, Luke Bruce.
Did my best. I told him that.
I was at the Crows promo shoot yesterday for Channel 7, and
yes.
Tex was it just felt like Tex had a bit more swagger than he normally does.
Did
he had a bit of a pep in his step. Yeah, he loved it.
Did he actually mention it?
Absolutely well across it.
Really?
Yeah. Mate, this stuff gets around.
Wow.
The amount of players that watch our stuff on TikTok. Is there one that you've woken up in a cold sweat in the last 7 days around thinking, I went a bit harsh there, or I should have put him in?
Yeah, there's one either way, I reckon. There's one I'm regretting not putting in, and there's one that now I look back, I'm thinking to myself, how did I have him in?
Names?
Do you want to guess?
I reckon it's it's one of the 3 that you'd fail to put in would be Hogan, Heaney, or McGovern.
No, didn't lose sleep on any of those 3. Not 1 second.
I still can't believe all 3 of them.
Pendlebury.
Yeah, that is a great point. We actually had a message from an avid listener of the show who's
I got the same message.
Prominent DJ.
Yes.
A massive Collingwood fan, and said if Tex fits the bill, Pendle should be a walk-up given his resume.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair and reasonable.
Yeah. And the one that was lucky?
Taylor. Do you know he's only played 2 full seasons in 7?
Yeah. So that
doesn't bode well for
it counters your argument against McGovern.
My categories, yeah, exactly.
Where you said McGovern had only played 1 in 2 every 2 games.
For 4 years, yeah. So he's probably lucky, but the list is the list. I really enjoyed other people trying to change the list as if it was, up for a debate.
I enjoyed that too.
Did you? Yeah.
A mate of mine messaged saying, we'll talk about Kane Corns because he was the one that sort of went hardest and earliest on this, that he'd be most flat with not coming up with the list himself.
Well, he said that.
He did? Okay.
He said that on radio
I missed
a
that,
couple of times.
I only just saw his... Now, your list was questionable. His list was even more questionable.
I'm not... You're trying to get me involved in a tennis match with Kane. I'm not picking up the ball.
James Sicily, not in? Harris Andrews, you didn't watch the first half of the grand final last year. Harris Andrews, if not for Will Ashcroft and Lachie Neale, Harris Andrews was immense that day. But he also had Blakey in. Was Kane also not watching Blakey in the first half of the grand final? Yeah.
Wasn't he playing on Archie?
What did you think of people sort of enjoying their follow-up to you?
What do you mean?
Well, didn't Kane say this a year or 2 back?
I'm sick of AFL figures having opinions off the back of other AFL figures, and for likes of Daisy Thomas and Tony Shaw, who work part-time and they don't have to do a lot of on-air time, for their big opinions this week to be something that I said 12 months ago on SEN SA is embarrassing. So get up early, watch the games, work hard, and stop having opinions off other people's opinions. If I employed these people, I'd want my money back.
What are you doing to me here?
Is Hutchie,
Why are you taking me down this dark path?
Is Hutchie paying Kane for 4 days last week? Off the back of that.
So, okay. So he's had an opinion about my opinion.
Having said that
On opinions.
opinions on opinions shouldn't be an opinion.
What was the was it Dennis Pagan who originally said,
Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
no, well that was a famous one, but didn't he, wasn't it opinions are like assholes, everyone's got one.
Yeah. Tony Cochran rolls that out.
Oh, was it, okay, Tony Cochran. No, but I think it was Pags initially.
Probably, yeah.
It might have even been Sheeds.
Most likely.
Anyway, can I just clear something up here because I've had a lot of messages about it. And apparently it's doing the rounds online as well, like people are making posts about it.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yep.
Wondering if Kane and I genuinely dislike each other. So I just want to be clear about this. Kane and I have known each other for a long time. We worked together at 9 for a long time. We get on very well. So there's no malice here at all. 0.0.
What about when it comes to Mason?
His list was silly, but it's great that we can debate it.
What about when it comes to Mason Cox? Does that push the friendship a bit?
I was deadly serious about that. And I've been proven to be correct.
He's a premiership player. He's won a few finals of his own.
Hasn't played a heap of AFL since those comments. Anyway, we're not opening up Pandora's box again. We can't do it. Okay, let's get into why we're really here. And that is, this is a first. A first for tradies.
I've enjoyed the prep for this.
And that we're doing previews. Now, it's not just like any other preview. Where do we think they're going to finish and, who came in and who came out. There's a tradies vibe to it.
Yep.
A tradies theme. So we're going to do it our own way. And we've got some voice messages. We've got some Just Quicklies.
All thanks to 7-Eleven.
All thanks to Just Quickly's new sponsor, 7-Eleven, which I think I've never seen Mitch more excited about something.
Those singers.
And we'll roll them and weave them through the previews as we go. But we're going to start with the bottom 6. So we'll do it in 6s.
So we're going from bottom to top in terms of last year's ladder.
Yep. And we'll just put a prism of trade,
yes,
a lens of trade over the whole thing.
So Richmond.
Let's start with the Tigers.
They lose 7 premiership players last year. And in 1 year, they go from the 4th eldest list in the competition.
So Baker, Bolton, Graham, Grimes, Martin, Rioli. Was there a 7th?
Did you say Pickett?
I didn't say Pickett. That's the one I missed.
So 7 premiership players go out. They go from the 4th eldest list to the 17th in 1 season. That's as big as a transformation as I can remember. 4th to 17th in terms of age demographic.
I only had ins in the ins column. I've just had one word: children.
And that's what it is. They haven't picked up much else. These kids are going to take time. Sam Law is going to play early. Josh Smiley, when he gets over his couple of niggles, he'll play early as well. But they've picked up 2 key forwards, Jonty Fall and Harry Armstrong, who are going to take time. They just are key forwards. And for life after Tom Lynch, they're going to take time. And they've got a young key back in Luke Traynor, who's, a 2, 3, 4 year prospect. So it is going to be hard going for Richmond this year.
I mean, you've just mentioned 3 names that not one person would know if they walked down the street.
Richmond fans would know who.
Okay, outside of the Richmond Nuffs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
If we did our Swan Street test.
These are early.
Which we never actually did, by the way, with Sheasel.
These are early draft picks, though. These guys are all taken in the top 20, 25.
Yeah, but so you and I have had this debate how many times on this pod? Like, it's a complete raffle.
Yeah.
We have no idea. Like, they were in a good position in the draft to do as well as they possibly can. But how many times did we see this with Melbourne? How many times did we see it with Carlton?
Yeah.
We're seeing it at the moment with North Melbourne.
Yeah.
For all the hype that's written about these kids. And, we've never had a better opportunity and more access to statistics, to vision, to people talking about these guys from the ages of 12, 13, 14. So, in theory, it should be the easiest it's ever been right now to get a draft pool like this and nail it. But footy's not played in theory.
No, but if you...
So I think they've got a really, really rough couple of years coming up.
I agree.
And that's even if the kids are good.
I agree, but look at last year's premiership side. Will Ashcroft, Hugh McCluggage, Cam Rayner, Zach Bailey, they all play big roles. Darcy Wilmot in premiership teams, and these are all top 20 draft picks. Yep. So you can build for the future, but it's going to be a tough ride initially. And not to mention those guys, I think the 24 and unders on that list is red flags everywhere. If you look at last year's BNF, the guys currently in the 24 and under bracket at Richmond, Ryan Mansell's 7th, Seth Campbell 11th, Morris Rioli 15th, Tom Brown, Hugo Ralph-Smith and Sam Banks all equaled for 16th. So there's not a lot of top-end talent there from the 24 and under group. They're going to have to rely still on your Broads, your Shorts, your Tom Lynches, these sort of guys to carry them through. It's going to be a rough year for them.
Yep. I don't know what else to say other than, and we had to go through gaps. I mean, they've got gaps everywhere, don't they? But when you lose, as you just mentioned off the top, so eloquently, when they lose 7 premiership players, there's
in one hit.
Yeah,
and Adamuse, last year was tough with the injuries. They've changed up their high performance team, but I can't see them winning any more than 3 or 4 games this year.
No, and there's that, there's always those early opinions of I can't see them winning a game. Invariably they do. They'll win one or two, but I'd be shocked if they won more than 3.
Yeah. Just in terms of the holes, it's the second key forward, next to Tom Lynch, and he's into his 30s now. So the guys we mentioned out of the draft, they'll have to find one of those guys in time to be the guy. But look at their back line to start the year. So Tyler Young's out with the ACL. Gibca's out. They lose Grimes last year. Bolter's out, suspended for the first month. Legitimately, the first game against Carlton, Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow are going to be playing on Ben Miller and Jacob Kazitsky as the key backs.
That's scary.
That could be the game that ends the Richmond-Carlton round 1 in one hit this year. It could be triple figures this game.
Ooh.
If
when was the last time Carlton won a game by 100 points? Can think of plenty of losses.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
The other question for me on their list is the speed. So they lose Shea Bolton and Dan Rioli. They draft Lawler and Smiley early. They're not known for their speed. Lawler's a burst, Dusty type, but Dusty wasn't known for his speed. Can they find where the game is going? And clubs will tell you more and more that it's all about speed. And the other one for me is the defensive general. Every good team has the defensive general. Harris Andrews, Tom Stewart, James Sicily, the guy that is the pointer and the setter-upper in defence.
Yeah, the defensive quarterback.
Nick Vlauston's that guy, but he's 31 in April. So who's the next one after him? He's still got a few good years ahead of him, Nick Vlauston, but who's the next? Because I think that's the hole that I need to find.
So, and prediction, you're saying, 3 games?
Yeah, but also I reckon this year we'll be talking, and I've said this before on this podcast, we'll be talking about Jacob Hopper and Tim Taranto at times this year, like Jager O'Meara and Tom Mitchell of Hawthorn through 2022 and 2023. These are guys who were promised the lure of a chase for a premiership when they came. Damien Hardwick signed them up. He's gone now to Gold Coast, and they're left with the second youngest team in the competition to play around. It's a totally different sell to what they were pitched 2 years ago. So do these guys see it through and remain? That's the big question mark for me. Not questioning their loyalty.
No.
But they were promised the chase for success.
I think it's a great point that you raise.
This Richmond team for me is Hawthorn of 2021 through 22. They had one more crack thinking they were close.
Yep.
Fell away, and then it's just dramatic. Now Hawthorn have done well in the last 12 months to bounce like they have. But this could be a long grind for Richmond.
Okay, tough year ahead for the Tigers. We move
Prediction for you?
I think they'll win 2 games.
Yep.
And I think that they'll either finish last or second last.
Yeah, it's hard to argue, isn't it?
Yep. North Melbourne, really interesting year coming up for North. So we know they've had a couple of big outs, the main one being Taron Thomas, but he hasn't played a lot of footy. Same being for the likes of Jaden Stevenson and Hugh Greenwood. All 3 of those guys at some point had really high hopes, on their heads in North Melbourne colours, but didn't really work out for all 3 of them for very different circumstances. I'm just going through the main ins and outs, by the way. You feel free to add or subtract where you please. And then they bring in Caleb Daniel, who I really like as a pickup. I think would get a game at almost all clubs.
Except the Dogs.
Yeah, ironically. Jack Darling, I have no idea why they picked him up. And Luke Parker, I think, adds some grunt, adds some experience, adds some leadership. I think he's the perfect addition.
Yeah.
I still cannot believe 2 years after we first had this conversation that they haven't addressed their key back setup. I cannot fathom that. Like you just talked about if Curnow and Mackay, when they play against Richmond in round 1. I went to the Good Friday match. And the 2 guys playing on Curnow and Mackay were Toby Pink and was Biggie?
Biggie, I reckon, played that day, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon they were the 2.
Biggie's been delisted since.
And it was boys against men.
Yeah.
It really was. And I felt bad for North because it felt like during that game they were quite competitive in the middle with the likes of what they've got. But when the ball goes down there and you've got no one to play on the big fish, very difficult to stay competitive in games.
They would argue this year with Logue back from his ACL, with Charlie Comben, and Aiden Core as a back three. That's not a bad back three. If all three can stay on the park.
Yeah, but none of them have the history of staying on the park.
No, that's fair.
Core's never really been a number one defender anyway.
No, but he plays the
last
third
year
role.
did amazingly well.
He was batting out of his league last year.
Logue barely ever plays, and Comben's a project player that should be coming in as an addition.
Yeah.
He should be the cream on top. He shouldn't be part of the flour. I can't believe I just said that. I went too far with the cake analogy.
I liked it.
Thanks.
The Darling one, I know we've debated this previously. I think it's okay as a little stopgap.
I don't.
Until they find the next one.
I don't.
So it takes a little bit of the heat off Nick Larkey, because last year he was battered one out a lot of times.
But he kicked, 70-odd goals the year before?
Yeah, but they won, 2 or 3 games? The Caleb Daniel one, I'm with you. I think he's best 22 at most clubs. He's a good user off half-back. The question for me is 12 months earlier went and got Zach Fisher.
Yep.
And gave him a 4-year deal from Carlton. Do they not play the same role? And I don't think you can play them together, especially if you've got McKercher rolling through there.
Yeah, well, they probably can't play all three of them.
Yeah, unless McKercher pushes up to a wing, which
he might.
is a chance. I think their growth has to come out of the 20 to 24-year-olds. But the biggest question for me is where do they find an A grader?
Just became part of the vernacular, Scotty,
Yes.
by the way.
Because last year I compared this list build to Brisbane. They had the similar first-round picks for a 2, 3 or 4 year period. But then Brisbane go and win a flag by getting Neil, Dunkley, Charlie Cameron, Joe Danaher, who become premiership players. North Melbourne's recent additions from other clubs have been Zach Fisher, Dill Stevens, Darcy Tucker, Aiden Core, Griffin Logue, Jaden Stevenson. Like, we're talking poles apart in terms of quality out of those guys. Where is North's A and B plus additions going to come from in terms of the guys?
As in guys they poach from other clubs?
Yeah, because that's been... Tell me the last time North went and landed a good 22 to 28-year-old from another club in their prime. They go and get 3 All-Australians in Darling, Parker and Daniel, but they're past... Maybe Daniel's got a bit left, but...
Yeah, Daniel might actually...
Most of them are past their prime.
Yep. Well, Darling and Parker, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's a great question. And then obviously the big watch is LDU.
Yeah. Just on the key position players, they've drafted Will Dawson and Taylor Goad as project key defenders in time. Early-ish picks, both of those guys. So you'd hope that one of them can come on. And then we mentioned about Darling being the stopgap next to Larkey. They went and traded up last year, which was a massive selection in that draft for Matt Whitlock. They gave up their future first rounder as part of that transaction. So if both Richmond and North finish bottom 6 this year coming, it'll be essentially a pick 1 to 6 in exchange for pick 27 and pick early 20s.
Yep.
Like it's a big transaction, and there's going to be a bit of weight on that young kid's shoulders.
Just back on LDU, have you got an initial early thought?
I don't think he signs before round 8.
Problems. Problems for North.
What do you sit on it?
No, I'm with you, but I just think, if we get to the midway point of the year and they're 2-9 and LDU hasn't signed,
Yeah.
the whole it'll just be, cameras at Arden Street every single week.
Mm-hmm.
The offers coming from other clubs, people trying to get grabs of Paul and Robbie.
Yeah.
It'll just be intense.
Do you think he stays?
If I had to guess, I'd say he would. He would stay.
I'm on that side of things.
But I think things can change very quickly depending on how the season is panning out.
It's a similar...
Like if they're 2-9 and Clarko has another boil over and loses his cool at something and the conversation starts turning towards, is the Clarkson plan working and all that sort of stuff and it looks like a sinking ship, then I think, it would be, I'm not going to speak from behalf of them, but it would be incumbent on his management to start saying, well,
yeah,
you get one shot at this career, mate. What are we going to do? We can't afford you to waste away here if they're going to start again with another coach. But if they're, who knows? who's to say they're not 5 and 6 or 6 and 5, and 3 of these kids look like they're going to be superstars, and they come on, and Combin's dominating at centre half back, and LDU's having a good year, and it's like, well, mate, we've got 7 years on the table at 1.4. Why wouldn't you sign it? So that's why things can change. I'm not trying to sit on the fence here because I'm not a fence sitter, but things can change so quickly. So I think from a trade perspective, North and when we're about to get to West Coast are the 2 clubs where things can change really, really quickly depending on results.
I like North's midfield. We mentioned this last week. I think
don't.
Yeah, see, I think they've got enough growth there. And if Wardlaw can get his body right, which is a big if.
Yeah, but you just did another hammy. So.
And that's going to be a massive blow for them because he's the one that can be the game changer in that midfield.
On that, Mitchell, it's going to bring us to our first Just Quickly, brought to you by 7-Eleven's Food on the Go lunchtime offers. And I think we've got Brad.
Hey, boys. Brad here. Just quickly, are we actually believing the hype around North Melbourne this year? There's a lot of talk around them, smashing the 5.5 wins that's been set. And, the additions of Darling and Parker are contributing to that. But I look at their list in general, and sure, Harry Sheasel is a gun, but there's not a lot of other talent there. I don't see them smashing that 5.5 win total. If anything, I see them probably landing bang on 5. Sure, they might sneak a 6, but is it all just hype at this point? Or is it legitimate? Because from where I'm sitting, I can't see it.
It's a very, very good question.
I think Brad and I sing from the same hymn book. If people still sung, from hymn books. When was the last time you held a hymn book?
A while ago. For me, it's like time because these guys have all been in the system now for 3, 4, 5 years.
Yep.
So at some point, it's going to turn.
No, but this is the thing, though, Mitchell. It doesn't have to turn.
No, that's what I mean.
We're not entitled. The clubs aren't entitled to anything.
No, they're not.
Just because they get the high picks doesn't mean it works.
But I could go to Melbourne when they had Brayshaw, Oliver, Petrarca. They'd all been in the system. When they won the flag and started to contend, they'd all been in the system for 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, but
so at some point...
They've bottomed out so many times.
They did, but North have done that.
Yeah, they have.
So at some point, it's going to turn. But I'm with Brad. It's just you're not given the key. It'll just happen. And
the top 10 of their best and fairest from last year does not make for great rating.
Go on.
Davies, Uniac, Sherry, Sheasel, Curtis, Powell, Zerha, Combin, Core, McDonald, Archer.
Yeah.
The
top 3 are good players.
Yeah, but, there's not a lot of Brayshaws and Olivers coming through there.
No, but that's what I hope Sheasel and McKercher and Dersma can be. Wardlaw.
I mean, Sheasel for me looks like a potential superstar, but, he's a kid. It's only been 2 years. Wardlaw, I'm really worried about his body.
Yeah.
And I think for me, and I'm in the minority here, for me, the jury's still out of McKercher as to what kind of player he's going to end up being. Mm-hmm. He's not... He may be an absolute superstar, right?
Yep.
But he doesn't look to be Cripps. He doesn't look to be Oliver. He doesn't look to be Petrarca.
Oh, that's fair.
I mean, he could end up being...
For me, he's Merritt, Zach Merritt. That's his scope, his ceiling.
Merritt's how many best and fairest he won now? 5, 6?
Yeah, but McKercher's 20.
No, I know, but he doesn't... I don't see Merritt in McKercher.
Okay. Let's bookmark that for tradie season 8.
And so that's why I'm with Brad at the moment. I think there's a bit too much hype, and I want to see results.
Just finally on LDU for me, he's played more than 100 games and won 21 matches. So it's 1 in 5 strike rate, or just under for LDU.
That's hard going.
It's the same conversation last year as Cam Zerha. He came out and actually said that I want to see success. LDU's a different media performer. He's probably not going to say that.
Yeah.
But they're going to need a win early to convince him that this is the place to be. The only issue in the comparison with Zerha and LDU is I don't think Zerha had the serious offers and considerations from other clubs that LDU is going to have.
Yeah.
So it is a big decision for Luke.
Who's the number one? Who's the club at the top of the queue, do you reckon?
St Kilda have the money.
Yep.
And the issue with Luke Davies-Uniacke is he's a restricted free agent this year. So any offer that North can match, they will. So you're going to have to... If you're St Kilda and you want to keep your first round picks and not have to end up in a trade scenario like the Jeremy Cameron one, you have to blow North Melbourne out of the water so he walks to you for nothing. Otherwise, let's say North are offering 1.2 and St Kilda come with 1.3, 1.4. North will just match that and force a trade. And the club chasing him loses that, like we say, you don't want to have to give up draft picks to trade for these free agents. You want to bring them in the door for nothing. And the lure of going after a free agent is diminished when you're forced to trade for them.
Okay, prediction?
Yeah, for me, the LDU talks drag on a bit longer into round 8 onwards.
And prediction for how they're going to go, you think?
6 or 7 wins.
Okay. I think they'll finish bottom 2.
Bottom 2?
Yep.
Okay.
The West Coast Eagles. Goodness gracious me.
Should we get to Graham on the just quickly?
Let's open up with Graham.
Mitch and Sam, it's Graham here in Subiaco over in Perth. I wanted to get both of your thoughts on Harley Reid. Crikey Moses, he can play, can't he? I wanted to know from both of you if he is worth more in terms of trade value to the Eagles than he was prior to the draft as pick 1. Hooroo.
That's a very learned question from Graham. I reckon he's been out on 7-Eleven for the food on the go lunchtime offer.
Oh, very nice. Very nice little sneak in promo for you. We are here for 7-Eleven, by the way, and our Just Quicklies. Mitch's own segment has its own sponsor, and he's pretty pumped about it. I'll let you answer that one.
Just more. Only because he's lived up to the hype and more, Harley. Not that there was a major doubt on him being able to do what he has.
He's had some good moments in.
Yeah, but so the question was, is he worth more now than he was pre-draft? And I think he's proven that he's an A-grade quality player in the AFL.
Yep.
Not that there was any major doubts, but he's had to go and do it, and he has.
Okay.
You?
I think I would agree with you. Just more is probably about right.
Yeah.
So the West Coast Eagles, who obviously had a horrific year in 2024, they lose Barras, they lose Darling, Gaff retires. They had a lot more outs, but they're the sort of main headlines. Income Baker, Graham, and Owies, who I think are good additions, although they didn't need to pay for Owies. They just could have got him for free, but we'll digress on that. They've got gaps everywhere on the field. I think Baker and Graham had some leadership. Liam Baker's a really good footballer and has been for a while now, so he's a good pickup. Graham hasn't done it for a long time, so I know
his body's let him down.
I know everyone's talking about that he's a good pickup, but really the jury's out. They've got kids everywhere, a lot of them who we don't know if they're going to be any good. There's a lot of pressure on Harley Reid, who, if the rules were a few years ago, would be out of contract at the end of this year, but he's still got one more. But we know that there are going to be huge offers that come for him at the end of year number 2. And then, not out of nowhere, but this Oscar Allen stuff has really gotten legs, hasn't it? The last couple of months. And I saw that interview that he did on AFL.com, and they, directly asked him, what he thought his future, and the way he answered, I was like, oh goodness gracious, like that's a guy that's considering leaving, and when he's the captain of your club, I just fear for West Coast that, if they have a bad year and they lose one of or both of Allen and Reid, that club could go backwards really quickly.
Just on Oscar Allen, for me, it feels like he's hanging out for a longer term deal. So he's got the knee injury, which many will say isn't going away anytime soon. It's going to be with him for a long time in his career.
Yep.
Oscar Allen's knee injury. As a 26-year-old to be this year, so he turns 26 in 2025, captain of your footy club, that is a walk-up 7 or 8 year deal immediately.
Has to be.
As the figurehead of your footy club, as the spearhead, I can't see West Coast offering him any more than 4 or 5 years given the knee injury right now.
Then he goes then.
Which is going to create this protracted contract situation, which would open the door for a club to come in with 5 or 6, but they're going to have to do their own due diligence around his knee injury.
Yep.
So that's going to be one to track throughout the year. He's going to be an early whiteboard contender. For me, the biggest hole on their list is key back, losing Barras, and McGovern turns 33 in April. We've seen glimpses of Harry Edwards, but he hasn't strung it together for a long time. They're trying guys like Ryan Marrick and Rhett Bazzo in the key posts in defence. They're going to leak goals this year, West Coast. They are. They're going to have a new coach. They're going to try and play a bit quicker. I think they're going to leak goals. And having McGovern at the age of 33, who I believe is an A grader still, there's not much else.
I'm not touching that.
There's not much else around him. So they're going to have to find one for the future. Harry Edwards could be that guy, but we need to see it for longer. And then the top-end midfield talent. So they've got Tim Kelly and Harley Reid. Bo Allen they took in the first round of the draft this year. But can Campbell Chesser, can Elijah Hewitt, Ruben Jinby, can they take the next step? I think there's some holes in that midfield at the real top end. Now, Dom Sheed goes out.
I've been saying this for how many years?
I'm with you on that.
No, I thought you liked their kids early.
No, I did. I said that you weren't giving them enough credit.
Am I giving them enough credit now?
I
Closer.
You're closer to the mark. Dom Sheed goes out with the ACL. He's not a game changer anymore, but he hurts the depth. So instead of Dom Sheed being your 20th player, it means you're going to have to play another kid through there. It's going to take a little bit more time for the Eagles. I think Oscar Allen and Jake Waterman, when fit, is a good combo in attack. You got Liam Ryan as that sort of third hybrid type. Owies will come in and play. We're going to learn a lot this year about Bailey Williams in the ruck. But I think the big growth and the big question marks out of the Eagles, and like we've been saying for a year or two, their kids who are now 20, 21, 22, can this group be the ones to take them forward? Yes.
Prediction?
My prediction is around Oscar Allen. I think this one drags on for a while, and the Eagles don't come with any more than a 4 or 5 year deal.
And wins-ish?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yep.
You?
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 is about right. I would say 4. I think North and the Tigers are going to be worse. But I think their list is a bomb site, to be honest. And I think it could get worse.
Especially if Allen and Reid explore what's out there.
Well, they just have to go nuclear and just, start again, basically.
And you look at where they finished last year, and you go to the draft last year, the first pick they took was pick 16. So they go to the draft last year. Yes, they bring in Liam Baker, but that'll be a question mark for a long time around this footy club. They had pick 3. It's now in the hands of Carlton, and they don't go to the draft with the top 5 pick, given where they finished.
Yep. Okay, the Crows. Another interesting year for the Crows. Another coach under the pump in Matty Nix.
Yeah.
They lose Sloan and the likes of Himmelberg, and they bring in, I actually don't mind their ins, to be honest. Cumming, Neil Bullen, and Peatling are all going to play.
Yeah.
And all potentially, in their best 15?
And Sid Draper as well when you go to the top end of the draft.
I know, but I'm not really touching the draft with my ins because you know that I think the draft is just children, which it is.
Well, I look at the list and think they didn't lose a single player from their best 22 last year, and they brought in 4. So Neil Bullen, Peatling, Cumming, and I think Draper will go straight in there.
Okay.
The age demographic goes from 14th oldest to 8th. So this is a team that's ready to go. It is go time now, finally, for the Crows.
Yeah, I just don't like their list. I don't think that they've got enough star power. I don't think that their second tier is good enough. I think that they rely on the older guys a little bit too much.
Tex?
Yeah, well, I mean, Tex is still one of the most important players, Kane says he's not even in their best 22. I just think that's wrong.
What about Dawson and Rochelle, Rankin?
But Rankin hasn't shown it enough.
His body's let him down. I think Rankin's in for a big year.
Rochelle hasn't shown it enough.
Are we going to see the best of Wayne Miller? This is a question for me. All of a sudden, he's 27. This year, he was early pick. Can Darcy Fogarty take the leap from being a B grader to an A grader? Yeah, what happens with, a Chase Jones? He's showing glimpses, early pick. Can Riley Thilthorpe string together 20 games? There's a lot of question marks around the Crows.
I'm not sure about Thilthorpe. Again,
I like him.
But how though? Based on what?
I've seen 4 or 5 games last year that he could rip it apart if he gets a run at it.
Oh, geez, I think we see a lot of guys like that though. Got to do it consistently for a footy club like this to get back up the ladder.
I agree. Yeah. Luke Pedlar was an early pick. He's had the shoulder injuries. Can he become a consistent performer for this side? There is a lot of question marks. I do like Fogarty and Thilthorpe though. I think that's enough to build around in attack.
Yeah, I'm not as sure. I don't see them kicking enough goals between them. I think they rely on Tex way too much. I worry about their midfield outside of Dawson. And I think they've got a nice bunch of developing defenders that you've talked about for the last couple of years, but I don't think they have the quality in that list to contend with the other star clubs in the comp.
Yeah, Worrell, Butts, Murray, these guys need to really grab it this year.
Yep.
Michelini I'm big on. And the ruck is a question mark too. Riley O'Brien was dropped last year. My prediction for the Crows is they go after Sam Draper. Now, that's not a new thought. There's been plenty of people suggesting that, but he's a South Australian. He's a free agent this year. Spends a lot of time back in SA and he's time off. Big Drapes. Could he be a game changer with the mullet playing in front of 50,000 every week at the Adelaide Oval?
Yep. Predictions?
I think they have to be knocking on the door of the top 8. They've gone and got 4 players who will walk into their best 22. As I said, they're 8th now in terms of age demographic in the competition. It's go time, and if it's not, if they plateau again and just stagnate, I think it's curtains for Matthew Nicks.
Really?
Well, if they're not knocking on the top 8, knocking on the door of the top 8, it's all over.
Well, I think they have to make it. I'd go one further.
Okay.
I think if they finish 9th on percentage, I think he has to go.
Yeah.
It's been too long, right?
Yeah. History of this footy club suggests they don't get a run at it for this long.
No, haven't played in a final since the 17 granny.
That's
crazy when you think about it. I think they need another star mid, personally.
Agree with that.
They obviously threw the kitchen sink at Errol Goulden.
Yeah.
I thought that was the right move. We know that they were in the mix for Clayton Oliver. I think if you added someone like that with that reputation and that gravitas to the midfield to play alongside Dawson, I think you'd change the outlook on Adelaide almost immediately.
Yeah.
So if I was the Adelaide Crows, and I'm sure that they're thinking about this through their list management group, and Justin Reid, I think they need to be targeting a star midfielder.
Yeah.
And just throw the absolute kitchen sink, get another A-grader.
Yep. No, I agree with that. The midfield is, if Draper can be that guy to go with Rankin and Dawson, they've got something to work with there.
Yep.
But I'm with you. I think the top end talent in the midfield, you're just missing one or two.
Yep, I'm with you. Okay, on to the Ds.
Oh, the Ds.
Who probably have, of all the teams, well, certainly in this 6, have the biggest difference between what could happen positively and what could happen negatively.
Yeah.
Like, I could absolutely see them playing off in grand final, and I could absolutely see them finishing bottom 4.
So you've changed your tune. Last year you said they couldn't win the flag.
Did I say that?
Yeah, I think so, late in the year.
I need a
find
receipt
it.
there. Yeah, I need a Kane Corns receipt.
I'll spend all week going through some old
Yes,
eps.
please. Let's start with a Just Quickly, brought to you by 7-Eleven, from Tim.
G'day, boys. Just quickly, everyone is absolutely sleeping on them Demons. We've got a bottom 6 draw this year. Barring any major injuries, just like any other team would say, we've got a real tilt. This is 2020, looking 2021 all over again. I've got the warm fuzzies. $26 is absolutely juicy to win the premiership. Please gamble responsibly. Looking at Oliver hitting the track and how Petraka's hit the track, there's just absolutely no reason why we can't win the granny by 100 points. Anyway, cheers, boys.
Well, there's one reason. They haven't picked up a key forward.
No. I think the key forwards are coming along okay at the Ds.
You love young key forwards. You love it. You love a good watch this space story on a 204 centimetre 19-year-old.
Who's 1 in 10 times they make it.
Yeah, that's right. This is really your area of expertise.
But Jacob Van Rooyen's established himself now. Dan Turner showed a bit last year. They've got Jefferson, who's a first-round player from a few years ago. Just please pick him, please, because he's there. For me, the Ds, I think they got one of the best recruits of the off-season. Premiership defender walks in the door. Harrison Petty. Finally, for God's sakes, finally, they've decided that the guy who won a flag for them at key back, after trialling him as a ruck and a forward and wasting 2 years of his career,
doing with him?
Finally, they've put him at key back. Hallelujah.
I should have written this down. I should have done this statistically. I'm pretty sure it was just one game against Richmond.
Yes.
Where he kicked 6.
Kicked 6, yeah.
And everyone was like, oh, it's Matthew Lloyd. I was like, no, it's not. He's just playing against a bad team.
So I reckon after
He's never looked like a good key forward outside of those 4 quarters.
After all the chat last year, I think their list actually gets better. So they pick up tongue-in-cheek, but Harry Petty goes back, and it finally, I think, is the right mix with Lever and May. And then they go to the draft and get 2 top 11 picks. So Harvey Langford's going to be a star, and Xavier Lindsay's that outside user, that will be a player in time. So they keep Oliver and Petrarca. If they can be in the right mindset, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've had the opportunity to sleep on this opinion for a couple of months now. Because I went pretty hard on that they should have traded Oliver and Petrarca. And, there's obviously been a lot of Instagram activity of them training the house down and looking chiseled.
At weddings together.
So I just want to say, for the record, they absolutely should have traded both of them.
Okay, we're just doubling down on that?
Yeah, I think they've gone back to the well. I really hope it works for them. But, even I read Jake Niles' article 2 days ago, or earlier this week, about Petrarca's speech at the preseason camp. I love a good preseason camp story. And I just... There's too much... Sometimes in a relationship, too much has happened. It's just it's too hard to go back. That's what it feels like for me. It feels like everyone's trying to force this we're back to being a happy team thing. And I'm not buying it.
But you just said that this team could play off in a grand final, and this game is about winning premierships.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Would you be having that same conversation if they would have traded both of those guys and they had got draft picks in? You probably they're not.
Well, we got draft picks and Harry Mackay in. I would have turned it into a key forward, and would have backed in my youth. I would have tried to have turned Clayton Oliver into Harley Reid when they had the opportunity to.
Yeah, they gave that a good crack at the time.
Did they?
Yeah, they offered up at least 2-3 first rounders, I reckon.
But here we are. They've kept him. Things are looking positive. They haven't played anyone yet. I think they need to be worried about what happens after Gorn.
Yeah.
I think they need to be worried about what happens after May.
Yeah.
But having said that, every single team that has high quality aging players would be worried about who the next version or iteration of that player is. So it's a bit unfair of me to be, saying that that's a problem for them when they're still there.
But May's 33 now.
Yep.
I thought Lever was older than 29 when I searched this last night.
I know. He's been around for longer. He feels like he's been around for...
He felt 31.
Ages. Yeah, well, okay. Well, poor old Jake. Jake, if you're listening...
No, that's it.
We know that the Mo makes you look maybe a little bit older than previously, but I don't think you're 31.
It's a compliment for Jake because he's been such an established player for so long.
Yeah, sure.
The midfield's still a watch. So they lose Brayshaw out of there. They lost a bit of depth. Can Rivers become a difference maker in there? Can Sparrow finally live up to what we saw as a 21-year-old premiership player? So they've got Oliver Petrarca. The Viney deal to 2027 was whiskers to me. But if they can get a growth out of a Langford, a Rivers or a Sparrow, I think that midfield's in decent shape.
Yep.
And then Cozzy Pickett one.
I knew that I didn't even have to bring up predictions. I just knew that it'll be all about Cozzy.
So he's out for the first 3 games this year, which gets a little bit lost after that incident in the final game last year when he bumped Darcy Moore. Left forward pocket, punt right end.
Does get lost.
You can remember that incident where Moore went to pick up the footy.
I'm remembering it right now as you speak.
Pickett braced, bumped, got him out for 3 weeks. So there's small forwards minus Cozzy Pickett is a question mark for me. So Chandler's shown a bit. They've got other guys that'll roll through there, but they're not at the anywhere near the B or A grade quality of a Cozzy Pickett. And last year he flirted with a move back to WA. Didn't eventuate. I think he knew deep down that Melbourne weren't going to relent. But another 12 months, let's see what happens there. He's still got a couple of years left on his contract. But I think this is going to be an ongoing narrative for the season. And it already sort of has been, hasn't it? With the supposed Instagram likes and the love for the Dockers and the Eagles. He's got mates at those clubs. So Shea Bolton's a mate of his. He's mates with Michael Walters. He's got connections at the Eagles as well. So there is always going to be that allure and those guys trying to agitate for a move for Cozzy. It's just a matter of whether it gets serious or not.
Okay, nice work. There's your season preview for the Ds. And lastly, in the first of 3 season previews here on Tradies, brought to you by 7-Eleven's Food on the Go lunchtime offers, we have the Gold Coast Suns. And we're going to start with Francis, who's got a Just Quickly.
Gentlemen, welcome back to 2025. So good to have you back on the airwaves. You mentioned Matty Rao will be likely getting over $1 million in the top 60 players in the comp, and that he's going to be worth a pick around the top 8 to 10. Get your hand off it. That's about half of what he's going to be earned. We're going to see this year, when you've got a 24-year-old finish 7th in the Brownlow and he's just hitting his straps, as you said, you have to overpay to keep at the Gold Coast and you have to overpay to draw out. He's going to have 10 Melbourne teams bidding for him. The picks this year that clubs are getting, they're getting 3 years worth, this year, next year, and the year after. It's essentially the government printing money. You're going to see inflation. You got a weak draft. You got Tassie coming. Established, proven players are going to be worth double what they were last year. So it'll take 3 first-round picks and well over $1 million to get him out. That's my thoughts only. Love your work. See ya.
Love the energy of Francis.
Wow, Francis has got a high opinion of Matt Rao.
Yeah. Where do you sit?
I'm a watch on Rao. Like, I think he might end up being a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're putting him up against a wall against Noah Anderson, I'm picking Anderson 10 times out of 10.
And actually, just on that, someone pointed out.
Just quickly. What was about to happen.
Just quickly, someone pointed out, since you named Noah Anderson an A-grader,
Yes.
he was named captain 3 or 4 days later.
I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to take us down there. Maybe the A-graders list found its way into the leadership group meeting at the Gold Coast.
For me, with the inside mids, you've got to be Patrick Cripps quality to be talking what Francis is saying he's worth for Rao.
I agree with that.
We're talking different guys when it comes to a De Goey or a LDU in terms of the burst guys that can take a game away from you. I think to be paying what Francis is saying for Matt Rao, you need to be top 2 or 3 inside mids in the comp. Now, can he become that? Maybe.
Yep.
But right now, he's not. I think he's a very, very good player. But I'm still comfortable with my assessment of Rao in that pick 8 to 12 value.
I'm comfortable as well. I like their ins versus outs. Like they lose some guys, that sort of by the end weren't really in their best 22 or on the periphery, and Day with his injury concerns, and then Brandon Ellis. They lose a Darcy McPherson, and then they deliberately trade out a Jack Lukosius for value, and they bring in Noble and Rioli, 2 guys that play the exact type of football that Damien Hardwick wants to play at the Gold Coast Suns. They want to bring more energy through halfback, be less of a stoppage team, more of a counter-attack team.
So what does that mean for Rao if they're becoming less of a stoppage team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that they're going to have to let naturally evolve. There's plenty of good stoppage players who play good footy in counter-attack teams. And there's a lot of good rebounding players that play good footy in stoppage teams. So it may end up impacting his value. But, in the words of Damien Hardwick, after that shock loss to North at Marvel, he said they were going to grow up with an expletive in the middle.
Yeah.
Was that game?
I can't remember who they lost to, but it was at Marvel.
Almost positive it was
Something
North.
happens to Damien Hardwick at Marvel.
Yeah, he doesn't like it. Hang on. I know people from the AFL listen, so I'm not saying anything negative about Marvel. The redevelopment looks great, by the way.
Nice little wine bar at the front.
Hang on. You're a broadcast partner, so let's not
Let's
not say anything that could be seen as a conflict here. We just want to declare that Mitch works for Channel 7, the host broadcaster, who has a multi-billion-dollar deal with the AFL that is currently running.
Next topic. So in terms of the ins and outs, I think Dan Rioli is a difference maker. Noble's a nice fit and a need, but
I like Noble.
yeah, but Rioli's different ballpark.
Yes, I agree with that.
Lukosius goes out the door, but what it does, it opens up $2 million in their salary cap that they had owing for him over a back-ended deal.
Yep.
So he took less earlier, more money in the back end of his 2 years that were owing. So it's around $2 million they've opened up, which will help to try and pay Mac Andrew, keep Matt Rao. Ben King's coming out in 12 months' time.
Yep.
So these sort of conversations. I love their key position players at both ends. I think Mac Andrews is going to be a star. To complement him with Charlie Ballard, who gets slept on in the footy states because people just don't see a lot of him, but I think he's a really good player. And then Sam Collins has just won his second BNF. And then you go the other ends, Jed Walter and Ben King, with Ethan Reid developing nicely in the background. I think there's a lot to work with in terms of their key position players.
Like it.
There's not a lot of holes for me on this list. They go and pick up Leo Lombard, who could be a really good small forward, half forward, pressure type who can maybe push into the midfield in time. You got Closey on a wing, Rowell, Anderson, Miller, Flanders. Bailey Humphrey's the one, early pick, maybe plateaued a bit last year.
Definitely plateaued.
Can he strike? They've also got 3 first-round picks up their sleeve for this year. They're going to have a couple of academy kids. He's my weekly Zeke Ewan mention, but he's in there.
Oh, God, you'd love that guy.
The big question for me is, can they go, and they've done it, I guess, with Rioli, so that's one box ticked. Can they go and find an A-grader from another club? Because I look at their BNF, the last 5 best and fairest for the Gold Coast Suns, the winner or runner-up has been taken by the Suns out of the draft. So they haven't gone and done what Brisbane have done and gone and got a Danaher, a Dunkley, a Neal, a Charlie Cameron. Rioli, tick, 1. But where's the next 2 or 3 that'll help them win this premiership? I think that's maybe a watch on what the Gold Coast Suns can do. Can they go and land a whopper out of the free agency market? Can they go and convince the next Dan Rioli? They've already got one, but where's the next one? Because they've drafted pretty well and they've had plenty of picks to play with, so I'll give you that. But the last 5 BNFs, the winner or runner-up have come homegrown. Can they go and find a difference maker elsewhere?
Yep. The one I just want to talk about with predictions is King for me. Mm-hmm. So if you have a look at his last 3 seasons, so 55 last year, he kicked 40 in 23. We know he missed the whole 22 season with his knee. Kicked 47 in 21. So that's 142 goals in his last 3 seasons. That's pretty good going when you compare it to, say, like Jeremy Cameron, 170, Charlie Curnow, 199, 2 absolute superstars of the competition who are playing for teams that, you know, were or should have been flag favourites at some point of those last few years. So I think if King can get the right amount of service and, touch wood, can stay injury-free, I think this is the sort of year where he kicks 65, 75 goals. Mm-hmm. And I think that could be a difference maker. And then maybe he might sneak into the top 10 of their BNF ones.
That is still
Which is just the weirdest stat in footy for me. The weirdest stat in footy.
Kicks goals for fun. He can't get in the top 10.
Yeah, in a team that doesn't kick many. What are they doing?
I like it. Do they make the finals?
Oh, I knew you'd ask me that. Do the Gold Coast Suns play finals? Yes. Yes, they do.
I'm not as sold, but I think they have to. Like, if it's not now, when is it?
Yep.
They've got everything. Everything is there at their disposal. And the other thing I did mention, Jared Witts is still a good ruckman. I think the handover with Witts into Moyle is a nice juncture in years to come. Come on, Gold Coast. Put your big boy pants on and grow the up.
Wow. If that's not a good way to finish, I don't know what is. I've really enjoyed the
It's good.
the early season predictions and the season previews.
Good fun.
Please remember to follow on iHeart, Spotify, or subscribe on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This has been Tradies. We'll see you for 7-11 next week.